This wasn't a good start, was it? Amber and Ben from our team, can you just ping me in the chat there and let me know that everything is good? You can hear me and you can see me. Okay, cheers. Thanks very much. Thanks for that, Shane. Okay, guys, we're going to get started now. This month's webinar is all about keeping it simple and keeping it powerful. Basically, how to maximise Pipedrive's potential. Now, a lot of this is going to be the basics, and so we're not going to get bogged down in really fancy ways to set up the system or anything like that. It's going to be about coming back to basics a little bit and getting the most out of Pipedrive without needing to perform rocket surgery. Okay, so before we get into that though, just a brief introduction. My name is Ben Fuller. I work with Moti and I work with Pipedrive. That is my specialty. I work with sales CRMs and I've been working in and around Pipedrive for 8 years now. I sit on the Pipedrive Partner Leadership Panel. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going to chat with the other partners worldwide. And so if anyone's got any feature requests that they would like to see that are specific to Australian companies, please send those through, because we're going to get an opportunity to present to Pipedrive worldwide and drive product innovation. And Pipedrive is going to have a big focus on Australia and the APAC region over the coming 12 months. And if anyone's got any ideas around features that they would like to see that are specific to our region, please email us. Email me directly if you like, ben@modi.co, and I will, assuming that the ideas aren't ridiculous, I will present those ideas as to the leadership panel when we get together with them. A little bit about Modi. We are Pipedrive partners, of course. We're a former Pipedrive Global Partner of the Year, current Regional Partner of the Year. We've won awards the last 3 years in a row. We're on track to win again this year. We also work with Monday.com. We work with Just Call. We've got an exciting partnership coming up with Intercom. And so we're growing quickly. We've just brought on some more staff, which is fantastic. And those guys are absolute guns. Upcoming webinars, there's a little bit from a Monday side of things. And so if you're on the Monday side, there's some upcoming webinars in the education and training space, project sales in Monday. There'll be a CRM and cybersecurity webinar. And we're going to circle back and do a little bit more in the construction industry, Pipedrive and other apps for the trades being sort of plumbing contractors, electrical contractors, that type of thing, solar, people who install sheds, all of that type of stuff. Upcoming trade shows. So Modi is attending on behalf of Pipedrive. We're representing Pipedrive at the Melbourne Build Expo. It's happening late October, so it's about a month away from now. And we're very excited to be there. If you are in the industry, I encourage you to attend the construction design webinar. It is really, really good. It is probably the best of its type, I think, in the country, the Sydney and Melbourne versions of this. And we've got a stand there, so it would be great for you guys to drop in and say hi. Okay, let's get into what we're going to be talking about today. The key concepts that I want to cover are losing deals and the importance of losing deals, the SNAR method. So this is a little mnemonic device that basically you can teach your salespeople that is based around making sure they do the same thing before they exit an organization or exit a person or exit a deal, and they remember to do the same tasks before they move on to whatever else is they're going to be working on. And so we'll have a little bit of a look at the SNAR method. It's something that we do in quite a few training sessions. We're going to be talking about the power of fewer pipelines, probably the most important thing I think that we're going to be talking about today, because there tends to be pipeline creep. Over time, people create more pipelines without really thinking too much about what those pipelines might be used for, or if you could easily get that same functionality out of an existing pipeline. And I'm going to talk a little bit about when to create a pipeline and what that might look like. Automations, So we're just going to be touching on 5 or 6 of the key automations. There's a whole bunch there, as everyone is aware. There's an automations webinar that I can send through to anyone who's interested in taking a little bit of a deeper dive into automations, but we'll be touching on a few automations today. Data integrity. So from a data integrity perspective, there's some external software options that we're going to be talking about and the role of those particular softwares. The power of a check filter, and also SNAR, which I spoke about directly above there, the SNAR method, and how that's related to data integrity. Training and review. What we're going to be sort of talking about here a little bit is, and look, I'm just going to focus in on it now really. A CRM is not static. The users of the system forget how to do things. They forget about features. You need to monitor what's being put into your CRM. You need to continually train the team members, particularly those that you've identified that are lagging, and you need to run refresher sessions on how to use the CRM to make sure that everyone's getting the most out of it. Half of the time we get contacted by clients whose CRM is really well set up and they're complaining about something that they're not able to do within the CRM. And it's right there in front of them. It's just a matter of them using the system correctly. And usually it's not all members of their team. It's isolated members of the team who are having troubles. And so making sure that you're staying on top of your team from a training and review process when it comes to CRM. And this applies across all other platforms as well, whether it's your project management tool, your document signage tool, anything like that. Make sure you know how to use it and that you're taking advantage of the more recent features that have been released. Okay, let's get stuck in. We're going to talk about what I think is the most important thing of today's session, which is pipelines. As you can see there, the record for the highest number of pipelines that we've seen is 37. It's a client that we're working with at the moment to obviously trim down the number of pipelines. Following that, someone else had about 33 or 34. Both of those clients are still clients of ours, and we're working with them to vastly reduce the number of pipelines. And the aim is to get that down to about 5 or 6 or 7 pipelines for both of those organisations. Most companies, however, need 3 or fewer pipelines. You just simply don't need that many pipelines. And I'm going to jump into the system in a moment to give you an idea of the different types of pipelines and how you can avoid creating additional pipelines when the existing pipeline will do. We'll also talk a little bit about what you need to do, or when you do need to create a new pipeline, and usually what the use case is for that. So as you can see here, we've got 6 types of pipelines. But at the end of the day, there's really 4, because sales pipelines, renewals pipelines, and upsells and cross-sells pipelines are all types of sales, right? You can literally run all of those through the same pipeline if you wish. I mean, sales, renewals, and upsells, right? Project management is a different pipeline. Project management or onboarding or any type of post-administrative sales process. And then we have ticketing. Pipedrive is good at lightweight support ticketing. And so you don't always need to bring on board another tool like an Intercom, for example, is the best of the ticketing solutions at the moment. It does a hell of a lot more than that, but Intercom is probably the strongest in that space. But for very small use cases, that's overkill. And so for a lot of you, if you do have a support process, ticketing will work quite well. And the final one there is a blind e-com pipeline. Now, I'll explain this very quickly. If you are running a Shopify or BigCommerce or WooCommerce website backend that allows clients to check out and purchase online, often you will want to bring that data into the system, right? So client A has purchased product B, for example. What you often don't want to do is get the users in the system tangled up into having to do stuff with that information. You just want to bring it into the system for reporting purposes. And so often we will run a blind e-com pipeline, and blind means humans don't actually go in there and look at it, right? It just runs in the background, and we use it for reporting purposes, and so that we can track purchases that our clients have made online and have our human salespeople see those purchases without needing to leave the ecosystem that they operate in, which is Pipedrive. So let's just dive in here for a second and we will share screen. We're going to end up in the normal screen that we end up in, which is my demo environment. And we're just going to talk about pipelines for a moment. So in this demo environment, I have the 6 pipelines, right? Sales, upsells, and renewals. These are 3 types of sales pipelines. We have a project management or onboarding pipeline. So a deal is won in the sales pipeline. It will duplicate into the project management or the onboarding pipeline. Upsells and cross-sells, as I said, are types of sales. Now, these days, I would say my preference a lot of the time is rather than running a separate upsells or cross-sells pipeline, we use pinned filters to identify the upsells deals. So if I click here, these are my upsells deals in my sales pipeline. The reason I have this preference these days, although we used to implement upsells pipelines more commonly, is Pipedrive has introduced pinned filters, which allows you to, at the click of a button, see your upsells or see all of your deals all at once. And secondly, it's just easier cognitively not to have additional pipelines unless you actually really need them. Now, the reason you would run a separate upsells pipeline and the reason you create additional pipelines is that the process, the sales process might be different. And so I'm going to use the example of geography here, right? So you would never, ever set up a New South Wales and a Queensland and a Victorian pipeline for sales, right? It's just the sales process is the same. The only difference is geography, right? And so you run them all through a single pipeline and you use pinned filters up here to be able to separate out at the click of the button your New South Wales, your Queensland, your Victorian deals. And so only set up a new pipeline if the sales process is significantly different from what you've already got set up. And so for most of the time, upsells don't need to be run in separate pipelines. They can run through a sales pipeline like this. When it comes to renewals, which is another type of sales, often there is a need for a separate renewals pipeline. So what happens in this particular pipeline here is when a deal is marked as won, either in this renewals pipeline or in the sales pipeline, we look at the contract end date, and 90 days before the contract end date, we create a deal in the upcoming stage of this renewals pipeline. And then 60 days out from the contract end date, we move the deal into the next 60 days. Now, you will have your own timeframes around this, but this is a fairly typical setup. And then the back end of this pipeline can be customized to whatever you need. But it's these couple of upcoming stages here that differentiate a renewals pipeline from a sales pipeline, even if the flow is quite similar. However, most of the time, selling a renewals deal, so someone signing on for another 12 months, is a hell of a lot different to getting them across the line originally. And so the sales process, generally speaking, is also different. Project management. So when a deal is won in the new sales pipeline, the deal duplicates into the deal one stage of the project management pipeline. You create an activity generally, and you move the deal through the different stages of the project management pipeline. Now, a lot of you on the call might be thinking, well, Pipedrive has its own project management module within it. Why aren't you using that? And we do use that. I would say 60 to 70% of the time, we will use a pipeline like this, a project management pipeline, and 30 to 40% of the time, we will use the projects module within Pipedrive. Keep this in mind, the projects module within Pipedrive does not have reporting. And so we can't report on deal duration, conversion rates, and so on and so forth in the project management module. And this is one of the things I'm going to be talking about to Pipedrive in a few weeks, which is hopefully having a discussion around bringing reporting to that project management module. But at the moment, it doesn't exist. And so running a project management pipeline or an onboarding pipeline or a post-sales administrative pipeline, whatever it is that you would like to call it, very, very common within Pipedrive. And I think if you're not already doing this, even if you close the deal, you get the contract signed, and seemingly there's nothing else to do, there's always things that you can do to make the customer's experience nice and smooth, and Pipedrive is often a great tool to be able to use to do that. The last couple of pipelines here, well, the last pipeline, I suppose I've already spoken about the ticketing pipeline. Usually they're pretty straightforward, right? New support ticket, contact made, assigned to the team, investigate further, waiting on response, win or lose the deal, depending on whether or not it's successfully closed out. And then the blind ecom pipeline, usually they're super simple. This one is 3 stages, usually they're 2 stages. So they're the different types of pipelines. Again, to emphasize, the main point here is do not have more pipelines than what are necessary. And generally speaking, your pipelines are one of those sort of maximum 6 types of pipelines. If you have more than 10 pipelines in your system currently, you should do a review of what is necessary and what is not necessary, because you will find that a decent chunk of them are not, is definitely not necessary. Just back into the deck for a sec here. Losing deals. So I'm going to show you something that I have shown before on a previous webinar, which is my favorite filter inside of Pipedrive, which is my timing not ready yet filter. It's my favorite lost reason. And it's something that we do a lot of training around. And the reason for that is most of the battle with CRMs is not in the system, it's in the humans that use the system. And cognitively, you're fighting for attention, right? The system is fighting for the attention of the person using it. There's the emails, there's the project management tool, there's the document signage tool, there's Teams messages or Slack's messages and everything like that. And the CRM is fighting for that attention. And so the easier and simpler you can make the system, the better. And one of the things that overwhelms, particularly salespeople that aren't experienced, is they hold on to deals too long when they should be marked as lost. And it's almost impossible to convince a salesperson that they should be losing more deals. But if you give them a mechanism to be able to lose the deal, but be able to return to it and provide more focus to it, this is often what we believe is the best outcome, and something that salespeople, and it has been proven by us, that the salespeople do enjoy this particular method. And so what I'm going to do here is dive back into the system, and we're going to have a look at a very simple lost reason and then my favorite pinned filter within the system. So back where we were before, let's take this Armstrong support deal here, right? We'll just drag it down and mark it as lost. And I'm going to select a lost reason here. My lost reason is timing not yet. So in this case, what I'm going to say is that this client, Armstrong Support, potential client, has contacted me and said, hey, look, Ben, we're definitely going ahead, but we're not going ahead until the 26-27 financial year. So we'll sign off on the contract probably in July or August next year. Now, I did say I was going to lose it that way, but I'm not going to, because a better way is actually to go into the deal. Before I mark it as lost, if possible, what I'd like to do is set a follow-up. And so you never want to have a deal that's marked as lost for reason equals timing not yet without a follow-up activity. And so in this case, it's going to be appropriate for me, given the circumstances I just described, to contact them in early February, once everyone's back from school holidays. So I've got my follow-up here, right, set for the 4th of February. I'm going to make it a follow-up though, rather than a phone call. So I don't know how I'll reach out to them yet. And I'm going to mark the deal as lost. And I select lost reason is timing not yet. And I might want to comment, which is said July 2026. Right? So what I've done here is I've marked the deal as lost. I've set the lost reason for timing not yet. And I've set my follow-up for February next year, which is when it's appropriate for me to get back in contact with them. Now, what you can do to give comfort to your salespeople is you have a filter pinned up here, which is your timing not ready yet filter. Now, you can see here, here's that Armstrong support deal, right? And you can see all of my deals that I've got in my timing not ready yet filter. There's 24 in here. Now, what you can do as a sales manager is you can bring focus to these deals by at least once a month just going through them with the team, talking about if there's been any change or update. What this does for your salespeople is it gives them confidence around the fact that they can lose the deal and you're going to be, along with them, you're going to be returning back to that deal to talk about it. So it's not really lost. It's just sitting here behind this filter that actually brings more focus to it. The other thing you want to make sure is all of these deals, as you can see, except this Tall Tales deal here, they have a future activity set against them. So they all have a future activity set against them. And you can see I'm displaying the expected close date here. So that Armstrong support one, I didn't update the expected close date. So what I should do is go back in there, update that expected close date. And we're going to say that it's August 26, early August 26, say. And the Tall Tales deal, I need to create the follow-up activity for that. And so again, I would, let's say we're aiming for February. Right now, I've done everything I need to with this. Now, the job of my sales manager is to once a month or however often you have those sales meetings, return to this filter and discuss it with the team to make sure that you're staying on top of what's going on in here. Okay, we're just going to go back into the deck. Michael, Michael's just asked a question, everyone. How do I add or edit or pin new filters? So I'm actually going to answer that before I dive into the next slide. So come back across here, just share screen again. I'm going to turn off that time I'm not ready yet filter. And you can see this little pin icon up here. All you need to do to pin a filter is click here. And let's just say I want to pin all my one deals, right? So all one deals, I click there and you can see here's all one deals. And when I click into it, here's the hundreds of one deals in here, right? And so it's very easy to pin a filter. It's just that button there, find the filter, select it. It will add itself up here. Now, it adds itself up here in alphabetical order. And so if you want this to appear in a certain order, just use the naming convention that you need to, or make use of things like star or hash to give prominence to particular filters. Back into the deck. So just having a look at this, making sure that I've covered off everything here. The fourth point down, I didn't actually cover off, which is send group emails to them. And so what you can do is, if you have a subset of those timing not yet deals, and you feel that it's appropriate, you can have a timing not yet email template that you can send in bulk to all of them, just to say, hey, we're still here, we're still thinking of you, we'll be back in contact at the appropriate time, blah, blah, blah. And it's a very easy way just to stay front of mind, potentially, with those clients without sort of being in their face. Okay, SNAR, scan, notes, activity, repeat. This is a little mnemonic trick. Scan, notes, activity, repeat. It's something that we do from a training perspective, particularly with bigger teams who are not used to using a CRM and that are struggling with data integrity. This is especially helpful if you're not on the professional tier of Pipedrive and you're not using required fields where you can enforce the use of particular fields within the system. Then you can use this SNAR method. It's very simple, and I'll just show you what it is. So I'm going to go into this deal here. Let's say I've come in here and I'm making a couple of updates. Before I close out of any deal, any person, any organization, I remember SNAR, scan, notes, activity, repeat. So I scan for anything that I can update. I add my notes into the system. Said loves the footy and wants to chat about it all the time. So I can add a little note in there. Scan, notes, activity, repeat. Never, ever leave a deal, particularly, without creating a follow-up activity. So I'll create a follow-up phone call for tomorrow and repeat, right? Just make sure you've got the note, make sure you've got the activity. Scan really refers to scanning your custom fields here, or default and custom fields, and making sure that there's no gaps in the data or that the data doesn't need to be updated. So you can see here, for example, there's an old target implementation date here that if I scan properly, I will have noticed, and I pick up and I go with this target implementation date. Let's just say that we're contract start date was September 2024. We might update that one as well. So let's just say that we're starting on October the 1st with the implementation. And we would also update this. So scan, notes, activity, repeat. Teach your salespeople just to remember SNAR, scan, notes, activity, repeat, before they leave a deal. It's a super simple trick. I know it seems a little bit silly, but it actually works, particularly if you've got an inexperienced team, or if you've got a team where there's a little bit of turnover in the team and you're constantly trying to train new people. Half the battle is getting them to pay attention to what they're doing and not just blindly clicking away and moving on to the next thing. Okay, back into the deck. Data integrity. Now, this is related to SNAR, which is the previous slide, right? That's scan, notes, activity, repeat. Data integrity, there's a few levers that you can pull here. So there's the deduplication feature in Pipedrive, which I'll touch on. I'm going to show you dedupli very briefly, not how to use it, but just what it is. The same with zeroed out, which is absolutely critical. And also how to create a check filter in the system. Now, the last item here, how to create a check filter. It's especially useful for those of you on the lower tiers, so growth tier, particularly a lot of you on growth tier, where you don't have the option or required fields inside the Pipedrive, but you do want to pay a lot of attention to the data integrity inside of the system, creating a check filter. So this is a little trick that, again, the same thing, we do this with a lot of bigger companies who have a lot of users in the system, and they need to make sure that they're staying on top of all of the different data points inside of there. So let's dive into the system here, and we will have a look at, first of all, the deduplication feature inside of Pipedrive. Okay, so I'm going to try to get this right. Sometimes I'm not so good at this. It does hide on me, I think, and they have changed the location of it at some stage, which confused me. So I click on my name, I click on tools and apps, and you have across here, look at this, I found it straight away, merge duplicates. Now, I'm going to give a little bit of history here. Back in the day, Modi had a lot of input into this merge duplicates feature, and there is something that you're able to do via Pipedrive support, which we are not 100% sure is still available, but that is adjust the sensitivity of the merge duplicates. So by default, it's not very sensitive in identifying duplicates, and it requires a duplicate to have the same name and the same email address. So the name must be identical. Let's say Jordan Smith, and jordan.smith@gmail.com, right? However, you can, to our understanding, adjust the sensitivity of finding the merge duplicates here so that it's only picking up on email, right? So if you had Jordan Smith in there, and Smith was spelt with a Y in one and it's spelt with an I in the other, but the email address was identical, this would still find both of those and suggest them as a merge because the email address is identical. And so if you are struggling with identifying duplicates and you feel that it would be improved via potentially reducing the sensitivity, that potentially is an option. It definitely was an option at some stage. I know we've asked for it recently and there's been a little bit of pushback, but I believe it is still possible. On the organisation side of things, we don't have any in here, but it's generally predicated on name and address, whereas people is predicated on name and email address. And so what happens if we go for a merge down here? You can see customer test 1 here, right? There are 5 duplicates here in the system. This one here has a deal and 4 activities against it. The rest of them do not have any. So if we click keep separate, it will not ask us again whether or not they're dupes. Or if we click preview, it's going to show us what it's going to look like here, right? And then we can click merge, and we merge those all into a single record within the system. Now, this merge duplicates inside a Pipedrive is okay, but it's nothing on being able to use a tool like dedupli. So dedupli allows you to use fuzzy logic to identify duplicates, and then gives you the choice to use advanced logic as to whether or not to merge duplicates. If you've got a very dirty set of data, you will want to use dedupli rather than using Pipedrive's merge duplicates. Now, dedupli, the way that Modi charges for this is we pass on the cost of dedupli at cost. It's usually not super expensive if you don't have a huge amount of data. You can see here, let's say that I have 120,000 records. A record is a deal, a person, and an organisation, right? They account for one each. And so if I have 40,000 people, 40,000 organisations, and let's say 10,000 deals, I would be on 120,000 records, and I would need to pay $140 US, right, to use it for the month to merge those duplicates. Modi charges on top of this for our hourly rate to use dedupli. It's not a super difficult platform to use, but it's probably more time effective for you guys to engage us to do it, I would say, than to learn the platform and use it yourself. But it's extremely powerful for learning, for merging dirty data within the system. Like I said, it uses fuzzy logic. And so fuzzy logic might be the difference between 34 Smith Street, where street is spelt in whole, right? Or 34 Smith ST. Like this is, let's say it's the name of an organisation, right? It'll identify 34 Smith Street in both of those different scenarios, one where street is spelt out fully and the other where it's using the ST to stand for street. It will identify those as a match, whereas Pipedrive won't do that. And also, like if you're doing it in Excel, Excel generally won't do it. The other thing from a data cleansing perspective is Zero Bounce. Zero Bounce is an email validation service. Basically, as it says here, email validation service. What it does is you take the database, your database, you upload it into Zero Bounce, and Zero Bounce returns whether or not that email is valid. But it does it in about 10 or 12 different statuses, right? It might be that it's a spam email. It might be someone that's known for marking emails as spam. So it is that sensitive, right? If you are using Pipedrive campaigns, you should be using Zero Bounce or one of its competitor products. I would say once every 6 months at a minimum to check your database. Pipedrive, MailChimp, HubSpot's marketing platform, ActiveCampaign, all of those big marketing automation tools, they are getting more and more strict and they are banning more and more people. Pipedrive is at the moment especially militant around this. And if you're getting too high a bounce rates or too many people marking your emails as spam, you will be banned from the platform. And so Zero Bounce is a way to be able to make sure that your open rates are high, your bounce rates are low, and your spam marking rates are low as well. Creating a check filter. Okay, so I'm just going to go back across here. For those of you on the growth plan or lower plans on Pipedrive, this is a way to sort of get around the fact that you don't have required fields in the system. And so let me show you what I mean by this. I'm in a deal pipeline here. As you can see, I'm just going to go across into a list view, and I've selected my filter here, which is my check filter. I would suggest that what you should do is you should have a check filter set up like I do and starred like I do, right? What you're looking for here is gaps in your check filter where information should exist that doesn't exist, right? So for example, the minimum that you will have in a check filter is the deal value, last activity date, next activity date. It's a very efficient way to be able to, at the click of a button, see if people are actually using activities in the system. And so this is one very good way to do it. But really what we're looking for here is things like industry and address. key fields that need to be filled out that users might skip in the system. Now, if you're on the professional tier of Pipedrive, this industry field here is a deal field and we can make it a required field. However, this address field here is an org field. We could make it required, but that would mean it's required right from the very start, right? And you sometimes don't know the address of the org early in the piece, right? Particularly if they've inquired with you online or something like that. And so having a column like this in a check filter allows you to go back over and just see where the gaps are and work on filling the gaps. And this is critical for data segmentation, for reporting, and for marketing, right? For those three things. You can sort chronologically and reverse chronologically with the activity dates and everything like that here, or I can sort here like this and identify which industries, which deals here are missing industry and add those in if I wish to, right? So let's add that one in there like that. And you can see that's how I fill the gap in here. It's very straightforward, but it's a very effective way to keep data integrity. Now, what I would say the filter should look like is deal status is open, deal pipeline is new sales. Okay, for me, it's new sales anyway. For you guys, it might be a little bit different, but at a minimum, it should be something along these lines. Back across into the deck and moving on to the next slide. We've only got a couple to go. So automations, I'm not going to make this exhaustive, but there are at a minimum some automations that should exist. And I feel like particularly the top one here, deal duplication, right? I really feel that we're seeing more and more customers coming to us that aren't our customers who don't have deal duplication set up between their pipelines, no matter what those pipelines are, most commonly sales into an onboarding pipeline, for example. And the first complaint is Pipedrive's not providing me the reporting that I need. And so deal duplication is the foundation of good reporting in Pipedrive. So it's absolutely critical. Another one is upcoming expected close date. So let's say that I'm a user in the system and I've set an expected close date for the 1st of October or maybe the 30th of September. Now, I'm not really looking as to whether or not I just want to close that deal, right? But maybe the client's dragging the chain and they're not going to get back to me. And I know in the back of my mind it's not going to close this month. I can get a reminder. So I set a date-based automation to get a reminder for that upcoming expected close date. Usually it's within 7 days. Well, that's at least the way that I do it, within 7 days. And so 7 days before an expected close date, I receive a notification for it and I will go in and adjust that expected close date. If you're like me and you have to report to a GM or a managing director like I do about, okay, how are sales going? Because that's my role at Modi. I mainly do sales. I have to report as to what's our forecast look like. If I'm not staying on top of my expected close date, my forecasts are wildly inaccurate, okay? And so I've got very good over the years at knowing when deals are going to close and roughly how much they're going to close for. And even to a degree, what the probability of those deals closing might be, although I use system default setups for that because I trust the system more than myself. But it's the expected close date that you have to stay on top of, right? And you have to be honest with yourself if you're a salesperson. The next one here, and I'll dive in and share screen, but I'll just talk through these very quickly. Update person and org. So what this is when you mark a deal as one in a sales pipeline, update the person and the organization to customer. Or when a deal is created in the sales pipeline, update their status to prospect, right? And so, and ideally, and you can't have an automation for this, but it's part of the same database cleanliness thing, is you should also have a label for former customer, for those customers that you can't really these days count as a customer anymore. The next one, create follow-up activity after proposal is sent. This is super straightforward. When a deal is moved into the proposal sent stage, create a follow-up activity for 3 days' time, whatever suits. Instructional activities I'll touch on in a sec, and COGS calculation. We'll touch on that very briefly as well. So let's dive in and share screen. As I said, there's a whole automations webinar that covers a bunch of this stuff, and so we're not going to be sort of going into too much detail here, but I am going to give a little bit of an overview of it. And so the deal duplication one, the first one we spoke about, when a deal is marked as one, the deal will duplicate into the onboarding pipeline, and potentially there's a renewals duplication there set up as well that's going to be a date-based trigger. So it's going to create 90 days or 120 days out. By far the most important duplication inside of the system. If you're running multiple pipelines and they should be connected by duplication and they're not, please reach out to us. It's going to change the way that you look at the data in the system. Upcoming expected close date. Like I just said before, let's take 26th of September here for this Silas deal. I will have received a notification on the 19th of September telling me to update this particular expected close date. It's critical for forecasting. Update person and org to prospect or customer. When I mark a deal as one, I want the person label and the org label to update the customer. So you can see here, Trinidad now is updated as a customer, right? LabDrill Technology is updated as a customer. And so I'm cheating a little bit here, guys. I updated that before, so I wouldn't have to wait for it to win, but that's what happens. When the deal's marked as one, those labels are updated from prospect to customer. Create a follow-up activity after the proposal is sent. So when the deal moves into the proposal sent stage, create a follow-up activity for 3 days time, 7 days time, whatever's appropriate for you guys. The next one I think is great for bigger teams that are inexperienced, right? You don't want to do this if you've got a small, tight team that's quite strong in the system. But if you've got a team that is not quite as good in the system, then you want to create this type of what we call instructional automation. So I'm just going to update a custom field here in an effort to show you this, and I'm going to update and close out these deals. Now, these activities. Watch what happens here. Watch this area here. When I move this deal into the qualified stage, so I'm just going to put one more thing in here as well. So when I move the deal into the qualified stage, I move it in like this, and watch this area here. Okay, this is what we call an instructional activity. This is telling the user exactly what to do in this circumstance. So, hey user, there's been a Google Drive folder auto-created and linked to this deal. Here's the link to the folder. Please save any documents to the folder. This 30-second video tells you exactly what you should be doing at this stage of the sales process. And consider sending email template 1.05 now that the deal is qualified. So I would come up here, I select my email template 1.05. I might make some changes in here to the template, right? Add some stuff in like that, and then hit send. This speeds up the sales process. It keeps communication constant, and it makes sure that especially inexperienced users are doing what even the best salespeople should be doing. The final thing is a COGS calculation. This is just an example of a more advanced style automation where you can assign a cost to a product in the system and have it automatically calculate a cost of goods sold for any products that are assigned to the deal, calculate a gross profit, and calculate a GP percentage, all based on just entering information into the system. And so you can create automations like that in the background as well. So that's some of the more advanced stuff that you can do inside of Pipedrive. Okay, we're nearly at the end, guys. The next one here, I touched on this very recently. This is a new feature within Pipedrive. Moti has started using it quite a bit ourselves, and we've been pretty impressed with it. So sequences are a new feature in the system that allow you to, similar to what I just said before with the instructional activity, you can follow the same process with a lot of deals, particularly at the top of the funnel. So lead-in stage, contact made stage, as you're trying to qualify a deal, you can use this new feature called sequences, which will automatically create activities for you and automatically draft email templates for you ready for sending. And so I'll show you where it is in the system. If you want to see a little bit more detail about it or how to use it, we will have a video that we will probably send out in the coming weeks just in relation to sequences. I did feature it in another webinar just a couple of months ago. So up here, you can see in this pulse area, right? It's called pulse. We have sequences, data enrichment, and scores. We're just going to focus in on sequences. We also have feeds, sorry, up the top. So you can create sequences inside of here. So this sequence, engage new leads. We can add deals to a sequence, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. It drafts an email, thanks for inquiry. It creates an activity, creates a follow-up activity on day 2, drafts another email on day 2, right? And so how we can add emails to sequences, and I'll just show you one way here, and I'll go into this particular deal. I can add to the sequence here like this, right? So engaging leads, I add the deal into the sequence, and whatever we've set to happen in that sequence then happens, okay? And so if you're not using it and you have high volumes at what we call top of funnels, so deal in, contact made, qualified, and your team struggles to stay on top of those high volumes, using sequences at top of funnel is a super effective way to use a new feature in Pipedrive and stay on top of all of those existing, so all of those top of funnel deals as you try to push them through to the qualification stage. AI generated reports, again, I've touched on this quite recently. I would recommend that everyone gets in there and gives it a little bit of a go. It's, again, another improved version of this. They are making updates to this monthly. We are seeing more and more plain language prompts giving you exactly the report that you need. And so if you're not super confident with data, right, if you're not super confident with creating your own report and you don't want to pay Modi a couple of $100 an hour to create reports for you, then jump in here and give this a go, because it really is, I think, one of the better uses of AI. So you can see in here, what they're using here is OpenAI, so sort of like ChatGPT in a sense under the hood, or like it's OpenAI is more accurate, under the hood, right? And I can put in a plain language request here. So instead of typing something, I'll just use one of their plain language requests here. And it's getting faster to generate. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time, but usually less than 30 seconds. And then it will generate the report for you, right? And so you can see here, what's the average conversion rate of deals in the funnel this year? And it's created that exact report for me, okay? And there's more advanced prompts than this, but this is a really good example of something that actually works really well. And for those less experienced users in the system, I would really encourage trying it out at the very least. Okay, the final thing that we're going to talk about today, and this is the last slide, everyone. This is something that I've realized that I do that I haven't really shared with clients before. And I work quite high volumes of deals, right? I'm working around 50 deals at any one time, between 40 and 50 deals at any one time in the Pipedrive space, as well as deals across other softwares as well, right? But 40 to 50 deals open deals at any one time in the Pipedrive space. And so I'm not as high volume as some of you salespeople out there, but it's reasonable, right? Especially when you add in a couple of those other softwares as well. So this is how I follow up my prospects that have gone cold without spending a huge amount of time for it and getting the biggest bang for my buck. And it's going to show you, some of you on the call might have actually received my breakup email at one stage or another. And so I'll show you what it looks like for me. So for those, my process is this: as I move a deal through the different stages of the pipeline, If it goes cold, as in people stop replying, it usually happens in two stages: after the proposal's been sent, right? Or usually after I've qualified them, or as I'm qualifying them, and they stop responding. And so I do 3 follow-up emails, generally a week apart, just depending on what I feel, what my impression so far of the company and the person. And then I will send a breakup email. And so let me show you the process from the breakup email. So I'm going to share screen here. I'm going to flick across to this pipeline. I'm going to have a look at this RD test deal here. So I'm going to go into it. For those of you who aren't aware, Artie is our head of CRM, one of the smartest blokes that I know, and responsible for a lot of the architecture of various systems, and someone that I rely on to sort of help make me seem a little bit smarter. So in this particular deal here, right, let's just say, I'm going to delete this one here. Let's just say that I've sent various emails out over the last few weeks and I haven't got a response. And so I will have then created a activity to send breakup email, and let's say that I've scheduled that for today, right? So I would have created this about a week ago. If they didn't reply in the meantime, I come in here, I select my email template, I click here like this, I search for my breakup email. Here it is here. Hi, Artie. Hope you're well. I haven't heard back from you in a little while. I'm going to assume that you've gone in another direction. I completely understand and won't take up any more of your time. I'm going to close your file in the system for now. And I hit send on that. This is ridiculously effective at getting people to respond, right? And so if you don't use a breakup email and you have problems with potential clients ghosting you, I would really recommend that you basically steal this template from us, right? So it looks like this. It looks like this. I think one of the reasons it's effective is the header here is person's first name. Should I stay or should I go now? It's just a little bit of a unique turn of phrase, and it's got the person's name in the email header, right? Now, once that's done, I mark that activity as done. I've sent the breakup email, and I set a follow-up, which is lose if no response, and I'm going to set it for today week, okay? Now, what I do is I very rarely mess with my processes. If I come in a week, this is in my system here, I complete the activity. I will then generally set a follow-up for a few months' time down the track, maybe if I think it's worth reaching out for one last shot at it, and I will mark the deal as lost, and I will select lost reason is ghosted, so no response, ghosted. I might put a comment in here. And so essentially what I'm showing you here, guys, is 2 activity types and 1 email template. The email template is your breakup email. Everyone should have one if you're a salesperson. And the activity types, this is something that we don't often do for clients even, because I've sort of kept it to myself, not intentionally. It's just something I've developed over time. But having these 2 activity types is a real time saver for me, and it allows me to sort of run numbers on how many reactivations I get off the back of sending the breakup email and all sorts of things. And so just keep all of that in mind, guys. It's a super effective way to be able to follow up on those clients or potential clients where you don't think it's really going to be worth like wasting too much of your time, but you want to re-engage with them. And I don't mean wasting time, but like you're dealing with volume, right? So you're dealing with high volume. You don't have time to chase people up 10 times hoping that they might re-engage with you. And that's everything for today, everyone. I do appreciate you all sticking around. If there's any questions, just ping it into the chat there. I'll hang around for a few minutes and Ben and Amber will help me answer some of these questions. In the meantime, if you want a copy of our breakup email, just email us. If there's anything else that you've seen on today's call, again, just email us and we will happily provide it all to you. Okay. Gavin, to answer your question, yes, it has been recorded and you will receive a copy of the recording once we finish up the webinar today. Philip, you have asked a very good question that I do not know the answer to. Philip's question is, I've started looking into sequences, and after adding a deal to a sequence, I could not work out how to manually remove a deal from a sequence. Can you tell me how to do this? Ben and Amber, if you are here and you know the answer, feel free to jump in and give me a hand here, because honestly, Philip, I'm not entirely sure. I haven't been hands-on enough with sequences to actually know the answer. However, I'm going to just jump in here. A very good question, Philip. So what we might do, guys, generally Amber sends out a follow-up to this. We will find the answer to Philip's question, and as part of the sort of the follow-up that everyone will receive from Amber. So this is separate from the recording. Amber will send a separate follow-up email, as she normally does, and as part of that, we'll provide the answer for you. Sorry I couldn't answer that question, Philip, but I'm just not across that area. I haven't been hands-on enough with it. Although Kyle from our team, who's unfortunately is not on the webinar at the moment, but he's been using this really, really effectively. And so that's why I'm included into as a last-minute inclusion into today's session, just because of how excited Kyle has been in or with sequences, and Marcelo as well from our team. Both of them have been speaking very highly about it. Okay, so there is a way to do it. We'll send some screenshots and some steps. Thank you very much, Ben Milligan. Okay, everyone, thanks for your time. Really do appreciate it. And until next month, cheers. Bye-bye.